I was asked whether I might share my thoughts on the situation currently with the militia, who call themselves the Citizens for Constitutional Freedom, who are occupying a federal building in the Malheur National Wildlife Reservation in eastern Oregon. They've taken the building and they're armed. And in the last week or so, as they did this, there's been a huge amount of public debate about whether the fact that they're not being moved on by the National Guard or SWAT or anything like that indicates um, a racist agenda as regards political protests in the Americas, especially the United States. The Paiute tribe has raised issue with them because they said something about our land, and the Paiutes are saying, "What are you talking about? You know, the reality is that this is actually our land." Anyway, I've been asked to speak about it because I grew up in Oregon, and in fact, um, in my last year there, when I was 17, I led a group of novice backpackers, hikers, outdoor enthusiasts, high school age people into the outback in the Steens Mountains, which is part of that Malheur Reserve. And one of my very fond memories of that place was that following one of the game trails, I picked up probably a half dozen very pristine arrowheads, probably from the Paiutes. But one of the things that I really enjoyed about growing up in Oregon in general was that um, there were artifacts like this littering the landscape, and it let you know, if you were aware of them, if you were seeing them, if you were picking them up, it let you know that the history that you were being introduced to in school was not the real history, that in fact this landscape had very recently been occupied by peoples of a very different culture who blended, um, harmonized far greater with the nature of the area. In any case, I don't want to go on a tangent, but let's talk about this militia, these Citizens for Constitutional Freedom, and what's really going on here. Why, I get, the big question is, why are they not being gunned down as terrorists? And for myself, as someone who is trained in anthropology, it's very easy to see why at this point they're safe. Um, I would say that they're not going to be safe for the long run, but right now, in this early period, they're safe. And the reason that they're safe is because their action defines a kind of political ritual. And there's many types of ritual, but in general, rituals will bring beliefs out into some kind of public inaction. And as they're being enacted, um, that allows the wider citizenry an opportunity to debate, um, to involve themselves in a discourse around the beliefs that ground these actions in general. And in this way, beliefs either are sustained or changed or what have you. And so, in a kind of a political ritual, we see this all the time. Take, for instance, the Queen of England. You know, every so often, she makes her way through Canada, where I'm presently living. And when she shows up, it's basically a political ritual. She shows up, and there's all kinds of debate and discussion about who gets to, what groups get to be part of whatever the event is where the Queen makes her presence seen, and so on. Um, and it brings out all kinds of beliefs and identity issues that are negotiated in that ritual context. Now, with this militia in Oregon, basically what they are embodying is a mythical national forefathers. You know, they're saying, okay, we are, what do they call themselves? The Citizens for Constitutional Freedom. That's an evocation to the forefathers right there. Um, the Citizens for Constitutional Freedom. What they're saying is that their act of um, occupying this federal land and being armed in doing so is likened to the men who founded the American um, colonies, who were basically a militia against the British government. And so they are bringing that very, very old, relatively old mythology to current by taking over this place with their arms, and by being a militia and claiming that they have the right to do this and that they represent constitutional freedoms and all of this kind of a thing. So in doing this, they are evoking some national beliefs, some mythologies around how the American ethics and ethos developed, and that they are embodiments of this. And you see there's all kinds of conflict over whether or not they actually do embody this. There are a lot of people who are Americans on paper, but have browner skin, and who say that, hey, if we did this same thing, you know that the police or the National Guard would descend on us like yesterday, and there would be a lot of bloodshed. We'd be dead. And they're correct in bringing this out. And this is part of the process. Like, this is why these guys are being allowed to do what they're doing right now, is because they are evoking discussion and discourse, right? So you have this group saying, or this many groups saying, hey, why are these guys not being treated as terrorists when they clearly are by definition? Like if we did this, we'd be considered terrorists. These guys are considered a militia and are likened to the forefathers. This is bizarre. All right, so this is part of the discourse. And then you have the Paiutes saying, hey, wait a minute, this is our land, right? These guys are making claims to this place and to their rights to do things on the land. I mean, all of this apparently came about because a couple of landowners who had been accused of poaching were starting wildfires on their land, according to the government, I think, to erase evidence of their poaching. But according to themselves, from other reasons. In any case, they were prosecuted, and this is why the militia is protesting. They're saying, hey, no, they got every right to do this on their land. And the Paiutes are saying, hey, that whole area is not their land, that's our land, and that was taken illegally. So this is part of the discourse too. The original peoples coming in and saying, hey, your entire claim to this area is bogus, and that's accurate as well. All of these different perspectives are accurate, but the answer to the question, why are these guys not being treated as terrorists, is because as long as we need the ritual to play out, to have the discussion, these guys are going to be treated like, they're just good. Nothing's going to happen. They're just going to be allowed to be there. This is the ritual right now. But the ritual does eventually come to an end. And this is the thing that happens with every kind of political protest that I've ever witnessed, at least. And this is something that the political protesters seem to not understand. You are allowed to, you are allowed by the state, by the empire, to create a ritual context like this briefly so that we can have the ritual, so that we can have the discussion and choose whether or not we're going to change our beliefs. But once the discussion is had, you better clear out. Otherwise, there will be bloodshed. There's definitely going to be violence at the very least. And, we saw this with the, not too long ago, with the protests that were going on, all over the United States and Canada. What did they call them? It's just not coming to mind at the moment. They're that meaningless to me, actually. When I look at protests, I recognize that they are these kind of political rituals, and that they're completely ineffective in terms of, well, I wouldn't say 100% ineffective, but for the most part, they're ineffective for what they are explicitly attempting to do. It's the Occupy protests that I'm talking about. We saw in the Occupy protests that people are allowed to do this, to stage this kind of ritual for a certain duration. Once the discussion has been had, though, and the belief settled, then the police and the National Guard and all of this move in and clear the scene, right? And this is what I predict is going to happen with this militia, with this Citizens for Constitutional Freedoms. They are being allowed some leniency right now, not because of race exactly, but because they embody a national belief or a conglomeration of national beliefs. And so they are raising those beliefs in front of the public for us to discuss. And as long as we're discussing them, these guys are going to be allowed to be there with their guns. But as soon as we're done with our discussion, then these guys are going to be cleared out. And if they don't get out on their own, and if they decide to try to hold their ground, they're going to be cleared in a very violent way, in a very violent manner, and their race doesn't matter. That's what I see coming for these guys. Now, it may be that they're going to run out of snacks way before then, but we'll see. For right now, the discussion is being had, the ritual is being staged, but I feel bad for these guys when it's done, because once it's done, they're in a heap of trouble. So that's my perspective on what's going on here. I think someone was expecting me to say a lot about the Paiutes perspective. Like I said, the Paiutes perspective is absolutely accurate, as is the perspective of every brown person that says, why are these guys not being attacked right away for taking over this area with guns? Yeah, they're correct. If it was another group, they would be attacked. But because these guys are white, and because they are invoking the Constitution, and they are a militia, a recognized militia, and they're basically embodying the forefathers' myth. And so that myth is being discussed right now. Once it's done being discussed, if these guys want to continue to try to hang on to that ground, they're going to be in for a bit of trauma. Watch and see.